Sometimes a relationship doesn't break with shouting, cheating, or drama. Sometimes it breaks in silence, in the moments where one person keeps asking and the other keeps pulling away. This isn't a story about blame. It's a story about a man who thought love meant trying harder, asking more, holding on tighter, and a woman who finally reached a breaking point she never knew was coming. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't cruel, but it was honest. This is the moment my wife snapped, and the lesson I learned too late about intimacy, self-respect, and what it truly means to be wanted. When intimacy turns into something that is requested again and again, it slowly loses its meaning. What once felt natural and mutual begins to feel forced, heavy, and uncomfortable for both people involved. Intimacy is supposed to grow from emotional safety, attraction, and connection, not from pressure or repeated asking. The moment one partner starts begging for closeness, it quietly signals that something deeper is missing, something that cannot be fixed by simply trying harder or asking louder. What often goes unnoticed is that begging does not create desire. It creates resistance. The more one person pushes, the more the other instinctively pulls away, not because they are cruel, but because desire cannot survive under obligation. Many people confuse effort with value. They believe that if they show how badly they want intimacy, their partner will finally understand their pain and respond with affection. In reality, this approach does the opposite. When intimacy is begged for, it no longer feels like a shared moment, but a duty. The partner being asked begins to feel cornered, as if their body or emotions are being negotiated rather than naturally offered. Over time, this builds quiet resentment, not because they don't care, but because they feel unseen as a person and reduced to a solution for someone else's unmet needs. Begging for intimacy also damages self-respect in ways that are not immediately obvious. Each time someone asks and is refused, something inside them shrinks. They begin to question their worth, their attractiveness, their value in the relationship. This inner doubt often leads to more begging, creating a painful cycle. The person asking believes they are fighting for love, but what they are actually doing is teaching themselves to accept less than mutual desire. Love that has to be chased loses its power, and intimacy that has to be pleaded for stops feeling intimate at all. From the other side, the partner being begged often feels overwhelmed and misunderstood. They may already be struggling emotionally, mentally, or physically, but instead of feeling supported, they feel pressured. Their lack of desire is treated as a problem to be fixed rather than a signal to be understood. Over time, they stop feeling safe, expressing how they truly feel, because every honest answer seems to lead to disappointment or conflict. This emotional distance grows quietly, even if the relationship appears normal on the surface. True intimacy is rooted in choice. It happens when both people feel free to say yes without fear and free to say no without consequences. The moment intimacy is tied to guilt, frustration, or emotional bargaining, it stops being an expression of love and becomes a transaction, and no one feels truly desired when they feel obligated. Desire needs space to breathe. It needs emotional closeness, respect, and trust. When those elements are missing, no amount of asking can replace them. There is also a deeper truth that many people avoid facing. When intimacy disappears, it is rarely the real problem. It is usually a symptom. It reflects unresolved emotional wounds, unmet needs, unspoken resentment, or a loss of connection that happened long before the bedroom went quiet. Begging for intimacy focuses on the surface issue while ignoring the root cause. It is like trying to treat pain without addressing the injury underneath. Temporary moments might happen, but the emptiness remains. Letting go of begging does not mean giving up on the relationship. It means shifting the focus inward and toward genuine connection. It means asking harder questions instead of repeating the same requests. Am I emotionally present? Do I listen without defending myself? Do I make my partner feel safe, valued, and understood outside of physical moments? Intimacy grows where emotional closeness exists. Without that foundation, physical closeness feels hollow. When a person stops begging, something powerful happens. They begin to reclaim their dignity. They stop chasing validation and start observing the relationship honestly. This change alone can shift the dynamic. Confidence and self-respect are deeply attractive, while desperation quietly repels. Intimacy cannot be demanded, but it can return when both people feel connected, respected, and free.
When a person starts standing in need instead of confidence, the shift is subtle but powerful. Confidence is quiet, steady, and rooted in self-worth, while need is loud, anxious, and constantly seeking reassurance. In relationships, this difference matters more than most people realize. When someone approaches their partner from a place of need, their energy communicates fear of loss, fear of rejection, and fear of not being enough. This fear is felt even when it is never spoken. Over time, it changes how the partner responds. Not because they stop caring, but because they begin to feel responsible for emotions that are not theirs to carry. Confidence does not mean emotional distance or coldness. It means knowing who you are without requiring constant validation from someone else. A confident person desires intimacy, connection, and affection, but they are not defined by whether they receive it in a particular moment. They understand that their worth does not rise or fall based on someone else's availability or mood. This internal stability creates emotional safety. When a partner feels they are with someone who is emotionally grounded, they relax. There is less pressure, less fear, and more space for natural closeness to grow. Neediness, on the other hand, often disguises itself as effort. It looks like trying harder, giving more, sacrificing more, and asking more. Beneath it is the belief that without constant reassurance, something terrible will happen. This belief slowly turns love into a test. Every interaction becomes a measure of whether the partner still cares. This emotional weight can become exhausting for the other person, even if they deeply love the one who is struggling. Love thrives in freedom, not in emotional surveillance. Standing in confidence also changes how conflict is handled. A confident person can express disappointment without collapsing into self-doubt. They can say how they feel without blaming or begging. They are able to listen without immediately defending themselves. This creates conversations instead of arguments. When someone stands in need, disagreements feel like threats. Every problem feels like proof that the relationship is failing. This intensity often pushes the other person into emotional withdrawal, not because they don't care, but because the emotional environment feels unsafe. There is a quiet strength in being able to sit with discomfort without demanding immediate relief from another person. Confidence allows someone to feel rejected or disconnected without losing their sense of self. Need demands that the discomfort be fixed right now, often by the partner's actions. This difference shapes attraction more than physical appearance ever could. Attraction grows when two people choose each other, not when one person feels responsible for holding the other together. Many people don't realize that standing in confidence is also an act of respect toward their partner. It communicates trust. It says, I trust you to come to me willingly. I trust myself enough to handle uncertainty. This trust removes pressure, and pressure is often the silent killer of intimacy. When pressure fades, curiosity, desire, and warmth have room to return. Choosing confidence does not mean shutting down emotions or pretending not to care. It means taking responsibility for one's inner world. It means recognizing that love cannot be controlled through anxiety or effort alone. Real closeness emerges when both people feel free to approach each other, not obligated to perform. A relationship built on confidence feels lighter, calmer, and more honest. 2. When someone shifts from need to confidence, the relationship dynamic changes even if nothing else does. They speak differently, they listen differently, they carry themselves differently, and even if the relationship does not survive, they survive with their self-respect intact. Standing in confidence is not about winning someone back. It is about standing whole, whether someone stays or goes.
When communication breaks down, many people try to replace understanding with insistence. They raise their voice, repeat their needs more aggressively, or turn their feelings into demands, believing that if they are clear enough, their partner will finally respond. What they often fail to see is that demanding creates resistance, while communication creates connection. True communication is not about forcing someone to hear you. It is about creating a space where both people feel safe enough to speak honestly. Without that safety, even the most carefully chosen words fall flat. Demand speaks from fear. It says, I need this from you now, or something is wrong. Communication speaks from curiosity. It says, help me understand what is happening between us. This difference may sound small, but emotionally it is vast. When someone feels demanded of, their nervous system reacts defensively. They shut down, explain less, and protect themselves. When someone feels heard without pressure, they open up. Even if the conversation is uncomfortable, intimacy grows in that openness, not in compliance. Many conflicts escalate because one person is talking while the other is preparing to defend. Real communication requires listening without immediately correcting, justifying, or minimizing the other person's experience. This is difficult, especially when emotions are high, but it is essential. When a partner feels that their feelings are being argued with, they stop sharing them. Over time, this silence becomes emotional distance. What looks like indifference is often self-protection. Communication also means expressing needs without attaching blame. Saying "you never" or "you always" turns a conversation into a courtroom. It forces the other person into the role of the accused. In that moment, the goal shifts from understanding to winning. True communication focuses on experience rather than accusation. It shares how something feels instead of assigning fault. This approach invites empathy rather than defensiveness. Another overlooked aspect of communication is timing. Even the most honest message can fail if delivered at the wrong moment. Trying to resolve deep emotional issues when one person is exhausted, stressed, or overwhelmed often leads to misunderstanding. Good communication respects emotional readiness. It waits for a moment when both people have the capacity to be present. This patience is not avoidance. It is care. Listening is often more powerful than speaking. When someone feels genuinely listened to, their emotional intensity softens. They no longer need to fight to be understood. This creates space for compromise and mutual problem-solving. Demands shut down this process. They signal that the outcome matters more than the person. Communication signals that the relationship itself is the priority. There is also courage involved in honest communication. It requires vulnerability. It means admitting confusion, fear, or hurt without knowing how the other person will respond. Demands hide vulnerability behind control. Communication exposes it. While exposure feels risky, it is the only path to real closeness. Relationships deepen when both people are willing to be seen, not when one person tries to manage the other's behavior. Over time, couples who communicate well develop emotional trust. They believe that problems can be discussed without threatening the relationship. This trust reduces anxiety and prevents small issues from becoming major conflicts. Understanding and respecting a partner's boundaries is often misunderstood as weakness, when in reality it is one of the clearest signs of emotional strength. Boundaries are not walls meant to shut someone out. They are guidelines that protect a person's emotional and physical well-being. When someone is able to recognize and honor these limits, they show maturity, self-control, and genuine care. Ignoring or pushing against boundaries might feel like passion or persistence in the moment, but over time it erodes trust and safety, which are essential for any healthy relationship. Many people react to boundaries with fear. They hear a no and interpret it as rejection, loss of attraction, or emotional abandonment. This fear often leads them to argue, negotiate, or pressure their partner to change their mind. What they don't realize is that this response places their own discomfort above their partner's autonomy. True strength lies in being able to tolerate disappointment without trying to control the outcome. It means trusting that closeness built on respect is far more sustainable than closeness forced through pressure. Respecting boundaries also communicates emotional intelligence. It shows that a person understands that their partner's needs, limits, and emotional rhythms may differ from their own. Instead of taking those differences personally, they accept them as part of a shared human experience. This acceptance creates safety. When someone feels safe, they're more likely to open up, relax, and engage willingly. When they feel pushed, they retreat, even if they care deeply. There is a powerful paradox in boundaries. The more someone feels their boundaries are respected, the less rigid those boundaries often become over time. When a partner knows they can say no without consequences, they are more likely to say yes when they truly want to. Pressure creates distance, while respect invites closeness. This is why strength in relationships is not about dominance or persistence, but about restraint and awareness. Respecting boundaries also protects the dignity of both people involved. It prevents resentment from building quietly beneath the surface. When boundaries are ignored, even small violations accumulate. The partner may not speak up immediately, but internally they begin to associate the relationship with discomfort. Over time, this discomfort turns into emotional withdrawal. What started as a desire for closeness ends up creating separation. Strength is also shown in how someone responds after a boundary is expressed. Do they listen, or do they argue? Do they reflect, or do they react? A strong person can pause and consider their partner's perspective without immediately defending themselves. They understand that a boundary is not an attack, but information. It reveals where care is needed, where trust is fragile, and where patience must be practiced. In relationships, respecting boundaries often requires unlearning harmful beliefs. Many people grow up thinking that love means sacrifice without limits, persistence without pause, and proving devotion through endurance. These beliefs can lead to unhealthy dynamics where one person's needs dominate the relationship. True love, however, recognizes that mutual respect is not optional. It is the foundation that allows both people to remain whole within the relationship. When boundaries are honored consistently, emotional security grows. Both partners know where they stand. They no longer have to guard themselves or anticipate pressure. This security creates space for vulnerability, playfulness, and genuine intimacy. Without boundaries, closeness feels risky. With boundaries, it feels safe. Choosing to respect a partner's boundaries is not about losing power. It is about choosing connection over control. It requires inner strength to step back, to wait, and to trust. And that strength often becomes the very thing that restores balance, attraction, and mutual desire in a relationship. Real intimacy is often misunderstood as something that can be created through effort alone, but effort without mutual desire rarely leads to closeness. Intimacy thrives when both people want to be there, not when one person is trying to convince the other. Mutual desire is not just about physical attraction. It is about emotional readiness, trust, and the feeling of being chosen rather than obligated. When intimacy is mutual, it feels natural and affirming. When it is forced, it feels heavy and hollow, even if it happens. Desire cannot be negotiated or reasoned into existence. It grows in environments where both partners feel respected, emotionally safe, and free to express themselves honestly. When someone feels pressured, even subtly, their natural response is to protect themselves. This protection often looks like withdrawal or avoidance, which then gets misinterpreted as lack of love. In reality, it is a reaction to feeling controlled or cornered. Mutual desire only exists when both people feel they have the freedom to say yes or no without fear of emotional consequences. Another important aspect of real intimacy is presence. Being physically close means very little if emotional presence is missing. Mutual desire includes the feeling that your partner sees you, hears you, and values you beyond what you can provide in a moment. When intimacy becomes goal-focused, such as trying to fix a problem or meet an expectation, presence disappears. The interaction becomes about outcome rather than connection. True intimacy is not rushed. It unfolds when both people are mentally and emotionally available. Mutual desire also requires each person must understand their own needs, triggers, and emotional patterns. Without this awareness, intimacy becomes confusing and inconsistent. One person may seek closeness to soothe anxiety, while the other may need space to feel safe. Without honest communication and respect, these differences clash. Mutual desire is found not by eliminating differences, but by understanding them and navigating them with care. There is also an element of trust in mutual desire that develops over time. When a partner consistently respects boundaries, listens without judgment, and shows emotional reliability, desire deepens. It becomes less fragile and more enduring. In contrast, when intimacy is tied to guilt, frustration, or emotional pressure, trust erodes. Even if physical closeness occurs, it does not strengthen the bond. It often leaves both people feeling disconnected afterward. Many relationships struggle because one partner focuses on frequency while the other focuses on quality. Mutual desire is not measured by how often intimacy happens, but by how it feels when it does. A single moment of genuine closeness can create more connection than many moments driven by obligation. When both people feel emotionally aligned, intimacy becomes a natural expression of that alignment, rather than a task to be completed. Choosing to prioritize mutual desires sometimes means accepting uncomfortable truths. It may reveal deeper issues in the relationship that need attention, such as unresolved resentment, emotional neglect, or mismatched expectations. Facing these truths can be painful, but avoiding them keeps intimacy superficial. Real closeness requires honesty, even when it is difficult. When intimacy comes from mutual desire, it strengthens both individuals rather than draining them. It leaves people feeling valued, wanted, and emotionally connected. It reinforces the sense that the relationship is a place of choice, not obligation. This kind of intimacy cannot be demanded, rushed, or forced. It emerges when two people meet each other with openness, respect, and genuine willingness. At the end of this story, the truth becomes clear that love is not proven by how much you beg, chase, or sacrifice yourself. Real connection is built on self-respect, emotional safety, and mutual choice. Intimacy cannot survive where pressure lives, and desire cannot grow where dignity is lost. When communication replaces demands, confidence replaces need, and respect replaces control, relationships either heal honestly or reveal what can no longer be saved. And sometimes, the most powerful lesson is not learning how to hold on, but learning how to stand whole on your own, knowing that real love chooses you freely or not at all.